Hey YouTube, Kevin Clear with a knife video. Got a really cool blade for you today, and one that I have been in love with for a long time before I ever got one. This is the Ferrum Ferox. For a long time I have followed these guys on YouTube, on Instagram. I've watched videos about this knife and just thought, hey, that is such an awesome knife. Maybe someday, I could, if I'm really fortunate, own one. Well, a while back I put something up for trade, and there were a couple of guys I was talking to, and then someone came along and sent me a message to say, hey, I've got a Ferrum Ferox, I'd offer you in trade for that. And I was like, yes! So really fortunate circumstances for me, and I'm really glad to make that trade and to have this knife. I've been using it for a while now and really love it. So everything worked out really well along those lines. Now I do want to point out some other things by way of introduction. To me, this is what a hard use knife should be, okay? Yes, it's overbuilt. Yes, it's really strong. Yes, it's got a big, thick, heavy blade stock, but it's also the right size to carry. It also cuts well, which of course a knife is supposed to do. I've had some overbuilt folders that they just don't, the edge geometry is terrible and they just don't cut anything. And you know, what good is a knife that won't cut, okay? So you guys may know who I'm talking about there, or what I'm talking about. It's also, the other cool thing about this knife is, although yes, it's high end, yes, it's a mid-tech, so the guys at Ferrum Forge have laid their own hands on this, which is really awesome. But it's also extremely utilitarian, okay? It gives you the option of carrying a higher end blade that is really tough and has this exceptional build quality, but it's also designed and finished in such a way that you can use it and carry it without having to worry about getting a scuff or a mark or whatever because of the great stonewash finishes that are on here. So lots of good things about this knife and lots of reasons that I really like it. I'll keep talking about some of those as we get into the specifics, so let's go there next. So size and weight on this, it is 8 and 5/16 overall, so just a little under 3/8 of an inch, or just a little under 8 and 3/8 of an inch. 3.5 inch blade, 4 and just a little over 4 3/4 inch handle length, okay? So like 4 and 13/16, so 1/16 bigger than 3/4. Cutting edge on this is 3 and 3/8, so you do lose a little bit for that choil, but I like the choil enough that that's a fine compromise to make. Oh yeah, the weight is about 6 ounces, so it's a little on the heavy end of the scale, especially for its size, but when you look at just the thickness of those titanium slabs and that 4V blade steel, you go, yeah, I can see where those 6 ounces come from. Okay, so it's certainly not inappropriate for what it is, that weight. Nor is it too heavy to carry. Like 6 ounces is not that bad. Okay, couple comparisons for you. Consider that the 0300, which by the way is a great knife, totally love it. But it's like 8 ounces, okay? And it's not that much bigger. Certainly it's bigger, but only by, maybe 3/8 of an inch or so. Great knife, but 8 ounces. So you're still, well below that. I'll give you one other comparison. This is the 0562, and they're very close in size. So if you've got, this is very close in size to an XM18. It's 8.5 inches. So many folders are 8.5 inches. So if you have that, you kind of see how the size comparison works out. It's just slightly larger than the Ferox. Okay, so that's size and weight and a couple of comparisons for you. Let's move on to some of the details about this, and I'll zoom in so that you can get a better look at the blade and stuff like that as I talk about those things. Okay, come on, there we go. Perfect. All right, so there we go. This knife has a 3.5 inch blade, as I said. Cutting edge is 3 and 3/8, and the steel on this is a very tough, very durable CPM 4V. Now 4V is said to be very very abrasion resistant, very tough steel, so it holds an edge extremely well. And I can tell you that since I've owned this, and I've done a lot of cutting with it, I have not had to sharpen it. I've just stropped it a little, and it will still shave hair no problem. By the way, the fact that it shaves hair, it cuts phone book paper, also says something about the edge geometry on this, which is excellent. Now the other thing I want to say is the stonewash finish here on the grind means that when you are cutting things, you know, any kind of scratches or wear don't show up very well. Add to that the toughness of this steel, and you've got a knife that you can really use and not have to worry too much about it. Also, this blade shape is great because of the fact that it's just a really utilitarian blade shape. The edge geometry is thin enough that it cuts really well. You've got enough belly that you could use it for even skinning tasks, you know, the outdoor use type of stuff. It could be, you know, it's plenty tough enough or thick enough, especially out to the tip, that you're not going to damage this with any kind of thrusting that you might do. So great blade. By the way, just from an aesthetic standpoint, the flats have this really nice grinder satin on them, and the stonewash is carried over to the blade spine as well. The blade spine is nicely rounded, so if you do choke up, you know, and you do this type of thing where your thumb is out here, it's still very comfortable, which again is really a win. So great blade for using, you know, just for utility purposes. This is an awesome blade shape. It's got that nice choil which allows you to choke up, and so the blade is just a real win. Okay, one of the things I really like is just the blade design. Now I would wish for this to be hollow ground instead of flat ground, but it's flat ground with a thin enough edge that it's still very functional, okay, which kind of makes up for the fact that it's not a hollow grind, even though I kind of would like it to be one. All right, so what else can I tell you about this? Well, lockup and deployment on it are excellent. This is a, you know, I'll be honest, the flipper tab is long, okay? If you look at this when it's closed, you go, man, that flipper tab sticks out there. Yes, it does, but when you get your finger on it and you push down and you see the speed that it flips out at, you go, okay, gotcha. I understand now what that flipper tab is doing. Not only that, but when you get this knife in hand and you feel how comfortable it is and how confidence inspiring it is to have that nice finger guard there, you go, yep, I don't mind that long flipper at all. In fact, I totally get why it was designed that way once you start using it. So it flips super fast. It is a ball bearing pivot system, which in this case is okay. It's still, you know, I still have my issues with ball bearing pivot, even though I love this knife. Do I think it could have been pulled off with phosphor bronze or something else? Yes, I do. Would I have preferred that? I don't know, maybe. It does flip really well, so in that sense I am a fan of the pivot. Now, a couple other things that I want to tell you about. Number one is right here, you can see by my finger that lock bar insert. So that's really cool, so that you don't have titanium and this very tough 4V steel interfacing, because the 4V is going to wear out the titanium. Nice to have a hardened stainless steel lock bar so that it lasts really well. Before I move down to the next thing that I want to talk about that's really cool, I want to just show you the decorative pivot on this side. And on this side, it's just sort of a swelled out head there, although it does tighten up really well, and there's no blade play at all. This is one of the solidest knives that I have ever seen. Okay, very good in terms of very solid lock, very solid construction just overall. Talking about lockup and deployment, I will show you the back of the blade tang here. Let's see if I can get this to focus as I mess with it. There we go. It is rounded to fit, to wrap right around that stop pin, and that does a couple of things. One, it adds longevity. Two, it adds security, so you get a better lockup. And so yeah, that's again really well done. Now, the other thing that I really want to talk about here, because this is absolutely phenomenal, is the relief cut. Okay, I think, you know, it's pretty obvious from, you know, if you just think about it, the weak point in any tie frame lock is going to be that relief cut. And if you start putting pressure on this lock, it's pretty much got to fail there. Now, what they have done that is extremely impressive, and I'm going to zoom in even a little bit more and see if I can show you this. Okay, focus, focus. There we go. Okay, so you see the front of the handle here, and you can see that there is a relief cut there. But if you could look inside, and I'm going to see if I can show you, it's not coming up very easily, but this front face that you can see is just that. It's a front face. Inside, it's actually milled out more. Okay, so it's deeper. So you end up inside of here, you have sort of a 3D box cut out of the lock bar. And what that does is it allows you to get a good relief cut while at the same time adding strength. And it's just a really ingenious idea. It's sort of like if you were to, let's zoom back out a little bit. There we go. It's sort of like if you were to, consider a steel I-beam where, you have the two edges of the beam and then the middle is hollowed out. You still get a lot of strength there, but you save a lot of weight. In this case, you get this nice combination of a lock bar that can be moved, although it is tough. Okay, I'll see you. I don't know if I can demonstrate this very well, but yeah, it does. If you've some Microtechs have a really stiff lock bar. This is a stiff lock bar. Okay, but I'm not going to complain about that at all, because with that stiffness comes a whole lot of strength. And frankly, if there's one area on my knife that I want to be strong, it is that lock bar right there. So really, really cool the way that they've done that. Adding strength to the relief cut by leaving a little bit of material there is a really, really great idea. And I'd actually like to see that on a lot of other folders. That is a brilliant way to get around what essentially has to be a weak point in the design. All right. So that's lockup and deployment. Lastly, we want to talk about the handle. I'll turn this around so you can see there's those very nice blue anode standoffs. By the way, that last one would work fine for a lanyard. The blade has enough space. See if I can show you in there. There's enough space between the blade and that last standoff that you're not going to cut your lanyard or anything like that. It's going to be totally functional. There's one more flipping action for you. It does flip like a dream. Pocket clip is single position, which we're pretty much used to at this level of design and this style of knife. You don't see a lot of mid-techs or custom knives that have movable pocket clips because, as you know, the designer has a vision, okay, and they don't want to ruin the vision by drilling a bunch of holes in it. One last thing, you can see the maker's mark right here, Ferrum Forge Knife Works. I guess a number of people, in some of the early videos, people are asking, how I can't make sense out of the symbol. That's all it is, 2 F's and then a KW for Knife Works. So Ferrum Forge Knife Works. All right. Let's zoom out and I'll give you my last sort of overall thoughts on this blade. This is a really, really well executed knife, okay? The finishes are durable and utilitarian. The shape and size is exactly what you need for a, EDC folding knife. And in fact, it's even exactly what you need for a knife that maybe you're going to do some bushcrafting with, or maybe you're going to use for combat purposes. Just a great all-around blade. There's nothing that this blade really misses on, okay? I don't know what else to tell you other than I totally love this blade. When you carry this, you really feel like you've got a knife that can do anything that you could possibly ever need to do with a knife. Doesn't matter what circumstance you run across on a given day, you've got a blade that is going to handle it. All right. Plus, you're getting a blade that has that hand-finished look and feel that you look for in a mid-tech. Just high quality, high durability, high utility. For me, those are 3 things that I really look for in a blade, and this one really knocks off every single one of them. All right, so there you go, guys. That's my take on the Ferrum Forge Ferox, an absolute favorite. Can't recommend this enough, and maybe someday, if I'm really fortunate, I'll be able to own a second blade from Ferrum Forge, because these guys really do awesome stuff. All right, talk to you later, YouTube.